Welcome to MINDSHOCK. This is your host, Bruce Maguire. And this is going to be an interesting one. How to become a logical master. And it's not what you think. This will be a systematic and succinct breakdown at how to become a logical master at anything. Just real quick in the chat, is the audio good? Did everybody hear the intro? Can everybody hear me? Just double checking. The YouTube servers are wonky pretty frequently. We have Justin Johnson, Flat Bob, Rune, Chin Chin, Franklin, Bill, Run Boston Bear, all in the chat. Okay, everything's good. Fantastic. The fall enslaves us all. Okay, yeah, so we'll be diving into this. As always, if you want to help support the MINDSHOCK podcast, help logic and reason return to a world which is quickly going extinct, you can donate to our PayPal. Check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic logical analysis, co-podcast requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. Unless, of course, you're with us here live, drop them in the live chat. Also, yes, MINDSHOCK just started a Discord server. I actually kind of like the interface better than Zoom. So we'll be actually doing some hangouts and round tables on Discord. And then I'll upload them on YouTube as well. If you're not a member of the Patreon, go to Patreon. It's in the links. And you can get the invite link for the Discord there. I think Run Boston Bear might have dropped it in the chat here too. Okay. So, also, just as a quick announcement, I did open up one-on-one live logical consultations for anybody who wants to become a logical master and wants point-by-point logical analysis or help with any particular topic in their life. So I've been doing that actually for a long time and opened it up here to anybody who wants to do it and learn more about logic and logical fallacies. But what I'm about to reveal here, and you can email me on that. That is mindshock@yahoo.com. So now you could leave it, Run Boston Bear. It's fine for now. So the topic of the video here is understanding logical fallacies is great, but it's actually not the fastest way to become a logical master. The way to become a logical master, surprisingly, is actually rooted more in the field of psychology. That's why I've always advocated for studying psychology in addition to logic, not one or the other. And I don't mean psychology as in being a psychologist or psychiatrist. A lot of those people are quite goofy because they don't understand logic. You kind of need both, but I'm going to make this short and sweet here today. We're not going to be going on for hours and hours. There's no comprehensive deep dive. The secret here is very basic. It is simply having your ego in check. That's really all it is. And that's why a lot of academics, quackademics, whatever you want to call them, people with tons of degrees, high-level degrees in various fields, it doesn't even occur to them that they're wrong about basics. And that's really how you become a logical master. Because if you're going to strictly adhere to principles of validity, aka being logical, your ego is usually the first roadblock. Because let's look at any topic there is, regardless of how triggering it is. If it's something connected to somebody's worldview or something that's emotional for them, like if you look at some of these political debates with a lot of goof spamming appeal to emotion logical fallacies, the reason why they're spamming all the fallacies isn't even necessarily that they don't understand fallacies. Some of them actually might. But it doesn't matter because they're so emotionally invested and their ego has them on such short strings. They can't objectively, logically, and neutrally take a step away from their own position. They just can't do it. If they could, then they can see, wait a second, why do I believe this? And some of the secrets here in how to become a logical master are rooted in metacognition. I've done an entire episode on metacognition, thinking about thinking. Check that out for the focus there. But it's not just about that. If you can take a step back, that's really all you need to know. I mean, obviously, understanding logical fallacies is helpful, because then that could kind of narrow down which ones you're committing. But without being able to take that step back and divorce yourself from your identity, including holding a particular opinion or belief. Because a lot of people, they're just really goofy. The average goof out there, their identity is tied to their beliefs, their belief systems. They haven't been able to divorce the two, so to speak. So if you can separate truth from the identity you have of yourself and not be a slave to your ego, that's really the secret. I mean, I don't know how much of a secret it is. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's kind of basic, and I've always been able to do that. Again, some people are just naturally talented at certain things. That doesn't make me a genius, doesn't make me super smart in any way. Just different people have different things that they're good at. Some people are physically gifted at many things. Other people are artistically gifted. I just happen to be talented in a way where I don't tie my identity to any beliefs. Even if I was indoctrinated into having a particular belief, even if I held it, whenever new information came along, I didn't jump on the new information as true in any way, but I was just always able to take the step back and say, wait a second, maybe this is true, maybe it's not. Let's look at it objectively. So that the ability to take a step back, divorce your identity from holding certain beliefs, and saying, let's look at something logically, objectively, neutrally, scientifically. That's what scientific really means. It means without any kind of bias in any way. B. Carter in the chat says, is cognitive dissonance the main barrier for most people's illogical minds? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. So cognitive dissonance is when the brain identifies. I mean, I actually should do an entire episode on this. I'm actually surprised I haven't. For the amount of time that we do spend talking about cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance actually, it's misapplied most of the time. Kind of like Occam's razor. That's another, this buzz phrase that had everybody kind of spams it, especially in the realm of true crime without understanding it. Cognitive dissonance is technically unknowingly holding conflicting positions. And when that's exposed, that causes the mental discomfort, etc. So it's actually not so cut and dry. It's not so cut and dry. I mean, I don't really want to go into it deeply here because that's not the point of this. Cognitive dissonance, obviously, it's a factor. There's some overlap. But yeah, Flat Bob says cognitive dissonance definitely needs its own deep dive. Yeah, we need to. I'll put that on the calendar. We have to get to that sooner rather than later, of course, because there's the misattributed cognitive dissonance, which is a lot of people just kind of use it as a buzz phrase of people are kind of mentally uncomfortable with certain ideas without the specificity of cognitive dissonance, the strict definition of cognitive dissonance requiring the holding of two conflicting beliefs. So, but yeah, I mean, there's overlap, but it's not necessarily specific to it. Look at young children. Young children, a lot of times, Chin Chin says MindShock University. Maybe I should brand that. So, children oftentimes are a lot more logical than adults because they're not really married to their beliefs. And there's not that societal expectation that children have to know what's going on about certain things. Like a lot of the goofery with adults, and this was one of my major mind shocks many decades ago, because when I was a kid, I used to kind of think adults know stuff, just in general. Like there's this societal expectation that if you're a functioning adult, a member of society, that you actually kind of know what's going on, not about everything, but that you have some kind of fundamental basics of what's going on in the world. Whereas with young children in particular, there's no societal expectation. They're not supposed to know what's going on. And that gives them a certain freedom to actually be more logical. Because there's no ego investment there in holding whatever beliefs they hold as a child. A lot of times it's like, who's better, Batman versus Superman? And yeah, it can be emotional in that sense as well, with the investment in the TV series or the action figures or the comic books, whatever, and personal preference. So there can be investment there, but when it comes to the truths of the world that are not rooted in opinion, a lot of times children, because their egos don't have them on such short strings and there's no level of societal expectation, they're able to learn in a more unbiased fashion. For example, if like an older brother, sister, whoever, they're talking about ghosts or whatever, it's not necessarily this silly thing, oh, they're not real, or they're real. A child is coming from a more objective vantage point because they don't necessarily have a stake in anything. They're not expected to know the truth about anything. There's no stigma, oh, you believe in ghosts if you're a little kid, or even Santa Claus, whatever the case may be. So children are naturally able to be more objective, and that gives them the edge in logic, whereas adults, how many adults can truly be objective? That's really the secret. It's not even about memorizing all the logical fallacies. It's not about having a high IQ. I mean, there are a lot of practical, wise people who aren't slaves to their egos. They can change positions, and they're quite logical without being highly intelligent. So that's really all there is. That's what I wanted to go over. I wanted to give away that secret, where it's more of a secret of psychology versus philosophy or logic. The other factor here too is the longer one holds a belief, the more they identify with it, and the harder it will be due to the psychological investment to change it. For example, if somebody's, if you're married to somebody, or even just had a long-term relationship with somebody, if you've known them for a few days, you can kind of cut the cord a lot quicker. The investment wasn't necessarily there when red flags arise. But look what happens, for example, when an authority-worshipping cultist, one of these NASA fanboys, as soon as somebody brings up the possibility that NASA didn't actually land men on the moon in 69, look what happens to their brain. And look what happens to a child's brain who may or may not have believed it. They didn't hold, there's not that level of emotional or ego investment for years and years or decades and decades. I mean, there's an old expression, there's no fool like an old fool. Because a lot of times older, not always, again, let's not fall for hasty generalization, logical fallacies. But when people hold beliefs for a really long time, they identify with those beliefs become their identity. Like, look at how often do hardcore Republicans or Democrats just flip-flop? Usually there's a major life turning point or revelation that has to hit them for them to switch or denounce both parties or whatever. It's not on a whim. That's the other leg up children have, because young children, they haven't been alive for that long. They haven't been emotionally invested in holding various opinions. I mean, the most they're invested in is probably some kind of Batman versus Superman, because they've spent a certain amount of time thinking about that or being fans of that. That's probably as emotionally invested as they can get. B. Carter says, is this part of the design of the mind, or is it potentially a learned thing through indoctrination? Which aspect? I mean, indoctrination is definitely a factor as well. I mean, the indoctrination is mostly just what those beliefs that people end up holding longer and becoming invested in are. That's what the indoctrination is, just the selection of which beliefs. It's not really it's more of it's pretty much more just the fact that time, the effect of time and the brain. Indoctrination is simply what was selected to occupy those brain cells. B. Carter says, the more time spent, the harder the cord is to cut. Yeah, no, that's just, I believe that it's mostly human nature. Unless somebody has been specifically trained in logic and reason and to identify the specific issues with holding beliefs for a certain period of time, and they have the mental strength to change with new evidence, etc. So the indoctrination would prevent people from becoming so it's the selection of which beliefs they're going to hold for periods of time, and also specifically to prevent them from re-examining their own beliefs by not teaching them about logic and reason. B. Carter says, could it be a more emotional attachment versus time? Well, it's both. It's both. People who aren't emotionally attached to beliefs, it's almost the convenience of time, because now we're also venturing into the arena of mental strength, because most people are mentally weak, and it's inconvenient to have to re-examine long-held beliefs. Like, a lot of people don't really they're not NASA fanboys. They don't give a crap if man went to the moon or not. But the amount of energy it would take to re-examine and do all that, they're not even really going to argue for NASA per se. Like, this is a certain breed of goof. Like, this is, we're not talking about NASA fanboys here, scientists and bootlickers. We're talking about people who just don't care. They're mentally lazy, so it's easier. Like, in a world where the cult of authority worship reigns supreme, even if they don't really give a crap, it's easier to hold the mainstream position, so that's what they're going to do. And they're not even necessarily going to defend or argue for it. They're not. They're not even going to spend the time arguing. Just for convenience sake in their own mind, they're just going to hold the mainstream position. Run Boston Bear saying, fire mini stream, great stuff. Yeah, I really wanted to tackle this because we spend a lot of time on certain specifics without... I want to get more back to some of these logical and psychological streams. I used to do a lot of these a couple years ago. I want to get back to doing more of these where the average coincidence theorist can re-examine all of these factors instead of arguing, instead of, us selecting a particular topic. and pointing out the fallacies of spiraling goals. I mean, we're going to do that too. That's fun. We're still going to do that. But some of these psychological streams where we really identify the barriers to logical rigor and being able to execute logical scientific rigor. Bill says, easier to fool someone than convince them they've been fooled. Yes, everything goes back to the ego. And just like the alleged old Greek quote, it is the mark of an educated mind to consider an idea or concept as true without believing in it. And that goes back again to the mental weakness of a lot of people. So mental strength is actually far more important than pure intelligence when it comes to becoming a logical master. You need to have mental strength and the wherewithal, the awareness of the ego. That's really all it is. And then you can take that step back and examine any particular issue without associating the issue with your own identity. If you can do that, you're all set. And that's another reason why certain topics are so triggering, like these hot button issues, like, for example, abortion or whatever. Some people have some kind of an emotional attachment to the issue, either through their own experience or a family member or whoever, regardless of whatever side of the issue they're on, whether they're an abortion survivor or they're someone who had an abortion. They're not able to take that step back and divorce their position from their own identity. And so they will be incapable of logically analyzing the issue or arguing it logically. It's just, it becomes an impossibility in that situation. So if you can always divorce your identity from any particular issue, that really is the secret to becoming a logical master. I'll take a few more questions in the chat, but I mean, that's really the bottom line here. I want to keep this short on purpose, just so anybody who watches this later, everything is succinct here. Bale says, Zen, the art of not doing, achievement without ownership. But B. Carter with some good questions in here. B. Carter says, would you say mental strength is something practiced rather innate? It is both. Just like the talented athlete versus the athlete that works hard, it is both. Some people just naturally are mentally stronger and they could utilize it. Other people aren't really that mentally strong, but if they have the interest and desire to build that mental strength and they have a passion for truth, which is obviously not everybody, but there's mentally weak individuals, they really just care about truth so they can train the mind to become mentally stronger, just like the body. But just like some people have greater or lesser physical gifts, everybody's starting point is different. That's hilarious. Malcolm in the chat says, just listening to Alan Watts talking about Zen, positive for the stream. Yeah, Alan Watts is an interesting individual. I should definitely do a deep dive on him. Franklin says, so it's more conscious than intelligence? Yes. But obviously, the more intelligent you are, the easier you can apply all of this. But it is not a requirement by any strength of the imagination. There's many people with lower intelligences than these some of these high-level quackademics that are far more logical, even though their intelligence is lower, their mental capacity is lower. Welcome, DeWitt Straight Laces. Interesting name there. I am Iron's Cat saying Robert Anton Wilson. You're opening up some rabbit holes there. We definitely do not need to get into those Illuminati rabbit holes. We're going to keep this one simple. So yes, just to summarize once more, simply being able to take a step back, divorcing a particular issue from your own identity, that is the secret to becoming a logical master. And having the mental strength to be okay with the truth not being with whatever position you personally might have held, regardless of how long you have held it. Those are the keys. Now, if you want to get really specific, yes, knowing which particular fallacies you may have been falling for to hold those beliefs, yeah, that could be helpful in narrowing things down, but that's all far less important than the psychological aspect of not allowing your ego to have you on short strings. Flat Bob says, ego, emotional attachment are the main factors in being able to utilize logic. Yes. And again, this is you could easily see individuals, some high-level individuals, even in debates, where they can be extremely logical. Ben Shapiro is actually a good example of this. They can be extremely logical on one topic and extremely illogical, falling for many of the same fallacies they point out in their opposition on a different topic when they are emotionally attached, invested, or identify with a particular issue. We don't need to get into the exact ones regarding Shapiro. But if somebody wants to see how this is implemented, some people say they can't stand Ben Shapiro. Can't blame you. I mean, he can be quite goofy. His blind spots are extreme. I did a whole podcast on blind spots, also illustrating this. This is related. When someone has their personal identity tied within a particular issue, they might fall for many of the same fallacies they point out in their opposition on a different topic that they're not as emotionally invested in and they can be more objective on. So the proficiency to understand the fallacies themselves is all there. But when they cannot recognize how their ego has them on such short strings, their intelligence counts for nothing. That's why the secret to becoming a logical master is to always be able to take a step back and observe, to be able to catch yourself whenever you're becoming emotionally invested in a particular topic or tying your identity to it. Because there's certain topics, I'm sure Ben Shapiro does not have the mental strength to say, oh, I was wrong about this my entire life, and this, which my identity is completely tied to, happens to be completely wrong. He doesn't have the mental strength for that, clearly. If he did, then perhaps he wouldn't argue as fallaciously on those particular topics. He was probably a great example. So, yeah, for people who want to... I'm actually pretty familiar with Robert Anton Wilson. I am Ian's cat. Bill says also Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu. Yes, the Tao is pretty incredible. Flat Bob says, I want to be a logical ninja. Yeah. DeWitt says, we tend to get attached to our preferences and or beliefs. Our rationale tends to get entangled in conceit, ego, and deceit, willful ignorance. Yes. Well, that's where cognitive biases come into play as well. And a lot of that all goes back to mental laziness, too, because, again, the mental strength. You really have to pay attention, and exercising mental strength is just like physical exercise. If you're a high-level athlete or a high-level weightlifter or whatever, you train really hard every day, what happens when you no longer train? Well, you're just not going to be as good at it. So it's the same thing, practicing mental strength. If you don't practice it, if you're not constantly re-examining your own beliefs, then you're not going to be as good at it. So, yeah, I mean, I think we kind of covered all of it. Nice little half-hour stream here. So here's the game plan. We're going to be doing some roundtables on various topics on Discord. So I will be setting those up because obviously there is not logical discussion on really any topics out there. I mean, just put on Joe Rogan or whatever. You're going to hear nothing but fallacy spamming for both Rogan and his guest most of the time. Or anything on the mainstream, any of the debates, any, turn on whatever. It's just nothing but fallacies. One of the reasons I started MindShock is I wanted to logically discuss very, very different topics. Not just conspiracies, not just true crime, but particularly the paranormal. I mean, when was the last time somebody heard a debate on Bigfoot or ghosts where people were not committing logical fallacies? So that's what I want to do. I'm starting to like Discord. I kind of like the format a bit better than Zoom. So we'll see what we can set up there on a host of different topics. B. Carter says, so basically there should be an Olympics for mental strength. That would be interesting. I mean, there really isn't anything like it. A great example, actually, as much as this triggers coincidence, there's Flat Earth is actually a great topic. Flat Earth, Tartaria, moon landing. Those three trigger goofs like nothing I've ever seen. And how many, even amongst the conspiracy theorists, when asked about Flat Earth, how many of them responded in a logical, objective, neutral fashion? I think of the big ones, I think maybe David Icke, who was the only one who wasn't triggered when asked about Flat Earth. I need to make a clip of that. I'll make a clip of that because we went over that on one live Q&A. I think David Icke was the only one who responded in a non-triggered fashion on the subject of Flat Earth. Yeah, the Logic Olympics. I do need to bring that back. I think actually Discord might be a better format for that than YouTube. So I will make all those announcements. Pay attention to the community or posts tab in YouTube here. I'll also post it on the Patreon, on Twitter, and we will definitely be doing a lot more on Discord. Shalom Shire Farm says, Bruce being active on Discord will be a game changer to the truth community as a whole. This is going to be great. Yeah, Run Boston Bear dropped the link, the invite link. I'll drop it again right here, too. And shout out again to Run Boston Bear. I think, it was Run Boston Bear, and it was also, I totally forgot who, oh man, now I feel kind of bad. Earlier today, someone in the chat just randomly asked about the Discord, and I finally said, you know what? Let me just set it up randomly. It was Fool on Discord, known as Fool, and I totally blanked on the username on YouTube that Fool has. But Fool and Run Boston Bear deserve the credit for getting MindShock on Discord. Yeah, let me just drop the link in here. Still getting to know Discord. And let's see here. Okay, so here's the link. So I just dropped the link in the YouTube chat right here, and I also posted it on the Patreon. so everybody could have it. And then I'll be doing the announcements on all the timing shortly. Perhaps we can do maybe even twice a week, just have roundtables set up so anybody can join for that. But will definitely be interesting to see where we take it all from here, and spread the word about logic and reason, which of course again can be applied to any topic. If anybody listening wants to do one-on-one consultations on logic, I've just opened it up to anybody. Like I said, I've been doing it private for a while, and I don't want to appeal to credentials or any other fallacies. I may or may not have taught logic and philosophy in certain institutions of a certain reputation, but I've been strictly online for a while now. Welcome, Ethan W. We're just rounding this one up. Make sure to listen to it from the beginning. It's a short one, but I gave the secret to becoming a logical master, which I'm not sure many people have been aware of this secret, but now it's all out there for free. So, yeah, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Plenty more to come. If you don't have Discord, consider getting it. We will be doing a lot of roundtables with active participation where people can actually activate. So it's kind of like Zoom, but with just kind of like more of a YouTube vibe where just everybody's there in the chat, etc. I am Ion's cat. I never claimed to be a professor. It would be fallacious to claim that. The merit of one's words speaks for itself. So that's all for now, folks. Keep your eye out for all the announcements on Discord. We will be getting pretty active there. Make sure you guys are subscribed on the YouTube here. You could also become a YouTube member, help support the channel that way. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. This is Bruce Maguire signing off. Catch you guys next time.